de la Bună ziua! Bine ați venit la ceremonia de inaugurare a sediului
Warm welcome to the inauguration of the Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center hosted by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Bogdan Aurescu. The ceremony enjoys the special presence of His Excellency, Mr. Klaus Iohannis, the President of Romania, that inaugurates the headquarters of the center in the presence of the Prime Minister Florin Cîțu and I invite the President of Romania, His Excellency Mr. Klaus Iohannis, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Bogdan Aurescu, to unveil the commemorative plaque with the name of the center.
Și acum îi invit pe
And now I invite the President of Romania, His Excellency Mr. Klaus Iohannis, His Excellency Mr. Florin Cîțu, Prime Minister of Romania, the Deputy Secretary General of NATO, and the Vice President of the European Commission for Interinstitutional Relations and Foresight, accompanied by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the President of the Center, Mr. Adrian Bratu, to visit the center's headquarters. After that, we will have the speeches of the high dignitaries will take place on the occasion of the inauguration of the center. Your Excellency, Mr. President, Prime Minister, Deputy Secretary General of NATO, Vice President of the European Commission, honorable ministers, distinguished participants. It is a special honor to welcome you and to host today's ceremony. I would like to give a special thanks to His Excellency Mr. Klaus Iohannis, the President of Romania, for the inauguration of the headquarters of Euro-Atlantic Center for Resilience, a project that has enjoyed the full support of his guidance. I would like to thank Prime Minister Cîțu for his support for enforcing the legal framework for the operation of the center, as well as for the allocation of the financial resources for the center so that the center can start its activity. I would also like to thank the high representatives of NATO and of the European Commission for accepting our invitation to participate to this very important moment. Your presence here is a confirmation of the importance and strategic dimensions that the center has, not only for Romania, but also for NATO and EU, and for the member states of the two organizations that are essential for the foreign policy and European and security policy of Romania, respectively, for the NATO and EU partners. I would like to thank you for this political support. I would like also to thank our partner institution, the Ministry of Defense, Minister of Internal Affairs, the Romanian Intelligence Service, the Foreign Intelligence Services, the General Secretariat of Government and the Special Telecommunications Service for their cooperation, and I'm convinced that this will become even better in the years to come. It is a very important moment for the ministry I run, because we are today able to mark a project that was a priority of the Romanian diplomacy in the last 9 months. So today we make a very relevant step forward for the full operationalization of EARC. I will give the floor now to the President of Romania for his speech. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Mulțumesc, domnule ministru.
Thank you, Minister.
Domnule prim-ministru,
Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Deputy Secretary General of NATO, Mr. Vice President of the European Commission, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to participate today to the inauguration of the headquarters of the Euro-Atlantic Center for Resilience, an initiative of Romania implemented with energy and efficiency. It is an important step in operationalization of the center, and I count in the future on the same energy and efficiency in the actions to have institutional and conceptual construction regarding the center. I trust that this project, that already enjoys the appreciation and interest of the North Atlantic Alliance, of the European Union, and of our international partners, will add value in the current geopolitical context. Every day we see that challenges and threats, including from the non-conventional register addressed to the states and societies that are part of the European and Euro-Atlantic community, are more and more diverse and become more and more harder and harder to fight. So it is necessary that our vigilance on all levels increase. So we need the concepts and the proper instruments of actions in order to respond accordingly. Resilience is such an essential concept, and the center inaugurated today is without any doubt a very necessary such tool. More and more often,
situații noi și extrem de complexe
new
ne
and very
demonstrează
complex
că
situations
efortul de
prove that the
consolidare a
effort to
rezilienței
consolidate,
față de
to
provocări și
strengthen
amenințări
resilience in face of
sofisticate
challenges,
și numeroase,
heterogeneous challenges and
trebuie să
threats
implice niveluri
that are
multiple
sophisticated and numerous
ale
should
administrației și societății.
should implicate
Trebuie
multiple
remarcat
levels of the
că
administration and
democrațiile
society.
sunt
We
vizate
have
în
to
special
see
de astfel de
that
amenințări,
democracies are
dar
envisaged by
trebuie în
such
același timp spus
threats,
și
but
că
at the same time we
pe
have to
termen
say
lung,
that in the long run,
democrațiile
democracies
sunt cel mai bine echipate
are
pentru a
best
le
equipped
răspunde.
to answer such threats.
Reziliența societală
Societal
pe care tocmai am
resilience
evocat-o
that I've just mentioned is just part of the more complex matters of resilience and an indicator itself of the complexity of the activity that the center inaugurated today will have to carry out.
Contextul pandemic
The pandemic context has outlined even more the reality that resilience has to be a central objective of our actions at national level, but also within the international organizations we are part of.
Fără doar și poate,
No doubt, any disruptive event accelerates certain trends, but a new and disadvantageable context asks for reason and facts.
Așa a început acțiunea
This is
României
how
de crearea
Romania's
Centrului
action
Euro-Atlantic
to
pentru
create the
Reziliență.
Euro-Atlantic Center for Resilience has started.
Răspunde
This
contextului actual,
answers
dar
the
și unui
current
set întreg de
context, but
provocări și
also to a
amenințări care
full
se
set of
manifestau deja
challenges
la
and
nivel
threats
internațional.
that already happened at international level, from the challenges generated by the emerging and disruptive technologies and the challenges to the communication systems or of the transport infrastructure, to the need for an efficient response to crises and complex emergencies, and to ensuring governance post-crisis and also of the essential services. Creating this center is another example of the firm commitment of Romania to European and Euro-Atlantic security and of our capacity to promote initiatives that add value for this purpose. By the decision to internationalize this center, we will promote Romania's objectives, the objectives of the North Atlantic Alliance and of the European Union in the field of resilience. We want this institution to become a pole of excellence and a provider of expertise for NATO and the European Union, respectively for the member states and for the partners of the two organizations. In this context, I appreciate very much the presence at this event of Mr. Mircea Geoană, Deputy Secretary General of NATO, and of Mr. Maroš Šefčovič, Vice President of the European Commission. I hope that your participation to this event will mark in a symbolic way also a future close collaboration of Romania, NATO and EU in developing this center. Romania proves once again that it fulfills its commitments and that it's no longer just a beneficiary but also a provider of security. We've always acted to ensure European and Euro-Atlantic security. We will continue in the same way in the future. I would like to wish success to all those that will carry out their activity in the center and that will contribute to forming an efficient response to the challenges and threats, more or less conventional, to our security. Thank you. Thank you once again, Mr. President, for the trust in performing this strategic importance project. I can assure that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will take all necessary actions so that this center will be a real success for Romania. Your support was and is essential in this sense. Please allow me to give the floor now to the Prime Minister of Romania, Mr. Florin Cîțu. Thank you, Minister. Your Excellency, Mr. President, Deputy Secretary General of NATO, Mr. Vice President of the European Commission, Mr. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ministers, distinguished guests. It is a special pleasure to participate in the inauguration of the Euro-Atlantic Center for Resilience, an institution that is subordinated to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that I can assure you benefits from the full support of the government, but of my support also. The establishment of the center is a natural consequence of the importance of the issues of that the issue of resilience has accumulated in the recent years. This is very complex and has to be closely monitored in terms of the impact on the society, but also on the institution of the state. Furthermore, I share with the opinion according to which resilience has to be made a concept from a perspective that it can allow it to become operational. Strengthening resilience has become an imperative both nationally and from the perspective of NATO and the European Union. This imperative must be answered with concrete measures for the identification of which the center is called to contribute. The center will benefit from a solid and varied baggage of expertise that will no doubt produce real added value that will be beneficial for Romania but also for our allies and partners. A state with the characteristics of Romania cannot be left outside the European and Euro-Atlantic debates. Personally, I see this involvement in terms of solidarity with our allies and partners. I know that there is already a process of reflection on how to strengthen resilience. I believe that it is necessary to share with our allies and partners the conclusions we reach, be they by stage or by ongoing processes, so that we can all be more efficient in tackling the challenges and threats we have already been facing for a while now. I also want the center to establish a rich and solid set of connections with the relevant European and Euro-Atlantic think tanks. Such a goal supposes an extensive international cooperation. The presence today here of the Deputy Secretary General of NATO and the Vice President of the Commission places this under very favorable auspices because, of course, the main platforms for Romanian international cooperation on resilience will be mainly those related to the Northern Atlantic Alliance and the European Union. And my message is that, for me, is that you have all the support, and the participation today shows this very well. Thank you very much, and I wish you success. Thank you, Prime Minister, for your appreciation and encouraging words. I would like to invite now the Deputy Secretary General of NATO, Mr. Mircea Geoană. Thank you very much, Minister, Your Excellency, President of Romania, Mr. Prime Minister.
My dear friend Maroš, for you especially, thank you for coming to Bucharest, coincidentally together for this great moment. Domnul ministri,
Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, resilience is part of the North Atlantic DNA. 72 years ago, the founders of NATO, in the Washington Treaty, in Article 3, have defined for the first time the concept of resilience. It's part, it's an institution and as a concept of the core of what we represent as a community of values and common interests in Europe. in the transatlantic partnership with our strategic partners from the US and from
În
Canada.
acele momente de război rece,
In those moments of the Cold War, resilience had a certain meaning,
dar NATO mai are
but
în codul său
NATO,
genetic
in
încă
its DNA,
o genă
still
permanentă, cea
has a
a
permanent
adaptării,
gene
a
that is adaptability and
Și
evolution.
astăzi la București,
And here in Bucharest today,
excepțional,
due to the exceptional efforts of the Romanian authorities, we are once again in front of a permanent adaptation.
domnul președinte,
The President
la summitul NATO de la
probably
Varsovia, în
remembers
2016,
the summit in Warsaw in 2016, a sense of foresight, as Mr. Šefčovič would say, when the European leaders have decided 6 years before the pandemic for NATO to be concerned in identifying resilience indicator for a number of topics that are of concern after coming back, rebounding from shocks, and to the security of transport, infrastructure, communication, relationship between civilians and military during crisis times, and NATO has always done a great job in building these resilience indicators. In 2 weeks, on the 14th of June, the NATO leaders will come back to the topic of resilience, and we hope we will have the consent of our leaders to go with an additional commitment for resilience, because this pandemic has taught us complex lessons that this gene of adaptability makes us internalize. This effort is not just an effort of national governments or local governments. The concept has developed, and today, as the President was saying, we are talking about an effort of resilience at society level, which means that the relationship with the private environment, the relationship with the non-governmental environment, with our citizens, is just as important as efficiency at governmental or intergovernmental level. This morning, with Mr. Šefčovič and Minister Aurescu, we have detailed this topic a lot. Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Ministers, I would like to greet Romania's decision to establish this center. It is a useful and necessary decision. I'm also very happy that this international center is not offered exclusively to the relationship with NATO, but to the strategic partnership between NATO and the EU. A few months ago, the Secretary General had a first meeting with the College of the Commissioners at the invitation of the President Ursula von der Leyen. Amongst the topics we have identified, and I'm managing it in a specific way, the topic of resilience is on the first place, and this is why this center has the purpose and the utility to provide expertise, to generate ideas, to work with the private and non-governmental environment, and to be able to create a system where societal resilience is strengthened. We are also very confident that this topic of resilience and the added value that the center in Bucharest is giving in the relationship with the NATO and EU countries will be beneficial, as the previous speakers were saying, also to our partners. We can't be safe and we can't have stability in the transatlantic world or in Europe or in the US if our neighbors are fragile. So we encourage as an additional dimension to be able to support our partners that need support and that need resilience and that need to fight against fragility. On my behalf and on behalf of the Secretary General of NATO, I want to congratulate the Romanian authorities. It is a great effort, and I'm convinced that this will contribute to deepening the operationalization of resilience at society level.
Domnule secretar general adjunct, vă mulțumesc General Deputy Secretary, I highly appreciate your words for the support of Romania. I'm confident that this center will make a significant contribution to the efforts of NATO and its allies to increase resilience, including in the context of discussions on the NATO 2030 process and future negotiations for the new strategic allied concept. I now give the floor to the European Commissioner for Interinstitutional Relations and Forecasting, Vice President of the European Commission, Commissioner Šefčovič. You have the floor.
Honorable President of Romania, Mr. Prime Minister, my dear friends, dear Mircea, dear Bogdan, first and foremost, I would like to thank you for your kind invitation to this very important event, but also to appreciate what I would say is pioneering spirit of Romania, through which you are clearly demonstrating your commitment to the Euro-Atlantic cooperation, to the integration, and you are kind of leading the way in charting the course forward, how we have to modernize the art of governance and governing. When Ursula von der Leyen was forming her college, what we believe would be our primary priority would be how to put the European Union on the course of very ambitious green and digital transformation. But the COVID-19 lessons taught us COVID-19 crisis taught us the hard lesson. And from then, you see that in every European document which we are proposing, we are speaking about resilience. So our goal is not only to be green and digital, but also to be resilient. And of course, really, resilience has a lot of meanings. And I think you, Romanians, living in such a geostrategic crossroads of energy, transportation, and more issues linked with these geostrategic tensions, where unfortunately we see that we are kind of moving for multilateral world to the world which will be more multipolar. We just simply have to be better prepared for the future. We need to rely on resilience. We need to rely on strategic foresight to be able to peek over the horizon, to look around the corner, to anticipate what might be the next big challenges for us being in the European Union and the NATO. What I really appreciate is a close cooperation with Romania, close cooperation between European Commission and NATO, thanks to our not only personal but institutional relationship. And as Deputy Secretary General of NATO has said, we had the first ever unprecedented visit of the Secretary General of NATO, Mr. Stoltenberg, to visit our college, where we've been discussing how can we complement each other's effort, where we can work together, and clearly the resilience is one of the very important chapters. I think that we go through very challenging times, but we know that the story of the future is not yet written, that we Europeans are the masters of our destinies, and therefore we have to work very closely with our partners in NATO and to work together within the EU to make Europe more resilient and more stable. And for that, I really would like to congratulate the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. As a former diplomat, I always appreciate if diplomacy has such a success as under your leadership, because to have such a Euro-Atlantic center back home here in Romania with being open to all your partners to contribute is absolutely crucial. The last thing I would mention is that 2 weeks ago we established the network of the EU ministers for the future. the ministers who are responsible for the foresight, the ministers who want to exchange the strategic information and present the visions how to build a better, more resilient future for the European Union. I know that in NATO there is the same process with the ministers responsible for resilience, so immediately here we see the possible cooperation and cross-sectional coordination. And therefore I really would like to appreciate this also on the behalf of the European Commission. I'm very much looking forward how we can work with the Centre to build this network of the renowned institutes, institutions and think tanks to make sure that we will work with the best possible analysis, with the most useful information for making sure that our partners within NATO or in the European Union would feel safer and will be living in a more resilient world. So thank you very much, Mr. President, and I really appreciate the invitation of the Romanian government for this official visit and looking forward to the very close cooperation with the Centre. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice President. Uniunea Europeană are într-adevăr un rol foarte important în demersurile pentru creșterea rezilienței
Indeed, the
strategice.
European Union has a strategic role in this, and I'm convinced that will benefit from the already accumulated expertise of the Union and the involvement of the institution we represent, and will contribute in its turn to the resilience of the member states and of the EU partners. Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. President of the Centre, well, this Centre shows that the Romanian diplomacy decided to offer the strategic solid content to the concept of resilience. The term is already part of our institutional European and Euro-Atlantic language. Also, Romania is already committed, as it was mentioned, in a series of processes of reflection on this topic of resilience within NATO, but also within the EU, in order to strengthen its position and to facilitate the response of these organizations, but also at the level of states and societies of the EU and NATO member states and their partners. So EARC is a strategic, concrete initiative of Romania that contributes to the strengthening of resilience of NATO and the EU, giving us tangible advantages in terms of security, our security and our allies and partners' security. The Romanian diplomacy has actively promoted this project at all levels. Personally, I presented this initiative with in the reunions of the ministers of Foreign Affairs of NATO from December 2020 and March 21 of the reunion of the Council for Foreign Affairs. And this initiative was welcomed and they showed interest in it. We will offer updated information to the allies tomorrow when we are going to have a video conference, the project of the Centre being relevant also in the context of the preparation for the NATO summit in 2021. In the last months, we had intensive efforts within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and our partner institutions, and I want to thank them again for this project. And here, today, EARC becomes a tangible reality. For the beginning, EARC will act as a Romanian institution with a legal personality subordinated to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. In a second stage, after reaching the initial operation capabilities, it will be internationalized and open to the experts of the member states of EU, NATO, and to the partners of these two organizations that want to join the activities of the Centre. The Centre will cooperate actively with the public institutions, but also with the private sector, the academia, the international research institutes, and with the civil society. We want this to be a platform for strategic discussions, to develop concepts, to collect and provide lessons learned and best practices, but also to be used for training and exercises, and to have several various programs on three pillars. First of all, fighting and reducing risks by anticipation and adaptation, then to develop analytic instruments and best practices, and then practical cooperation in the field of education, training, and common exercises. Even from the first stage of activity, the center will operationalize a set of work groups, also named communities of interest, that will focus on several dimensions of resilience: societal resilience, resilience in the field of threats generated by emerging and disruptive technologies, resilience of communication systems and new technological ecosystems, resilience to crisis and complex emergencies, resilience to ensuring the continuity of government and essential services, resilience to transport infrastructure, and the resilience of states of NATO and EU in front of anti-Western statal and non-statal actors. I'm convinced that ER will contribute significantly to increasing the resilience of Romania, NATO and EU, and I wish to all those that will be part of the team of the Center a lot of success in all their actions. Thank you very much.
Ceremonia de inaugurare a sediului.
The ceremony for the inauguration of the Euro-Atlantic Center for Resilience has ended. Thank you for your presence.